Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining with us. The question we want to look at is what Jesus said is to pray always. Don't get weary. Just keep praying in order to accomplish something or to do something. So what does that practically mean, and how could that be misinterpreted? But how can we take it to another level? That's what we're going to try to address tonight.
And this is the gospel according to Luke. Then Jesus told them a parable about the necessity for them to pray always without becoming weary. He said, "There was a judge in a certain town who neither feared God nor respected any human being. And a widow in that town used to come to him and say, 'Render a just decision for me against my adversary.' For a long time the judge was unwilling, but eventually he thought, 'While it is true that I neither fear God nor respect any human being, because this widow keeps bothering me, I shall deliver a just decision for her, lest she finally come and strike me.' The Lord said, 'Pay attention to what the dishonest judge says. Will not God then secure the rights of his chosen ones, who call out to him day and night? Will he be slow to answer them? I tell you, he will see to it that justice is done for them speedily. But when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?'" So Father Tom and I discussed this gospel reading, and I told him that I found it to be a really problematic reading, basically because in all of the years that I was a music minister, I played at untold numbers of masses, and I've heard this preached about numerous times, and usually the take on it is that the message for us is that we have to pray ceaselessly. And if we stick with it enough, then God's going to answer us. And the reason that I find that troublesome is because we talk about God as being all merciful and compassionate. And why would God behave like this judge who cares for no one and is sort of insisting that we just keep on asking and keep on asking and keep on asking? And I think many times, I think all of us can say that we've all had experiences in life in which we have prayed unceasingly for some intention of ours, only to find that that particular intention was never granted. And what are we to make of that? Likewise, I think this is the kind of an attitude that brings about expressions like prayer warriors or storming heaven, as if God, like the Wizard of Oz, is just not going to open the door for us, not going to listen to us unless we assemble a whole army to kind of beg God to do whatever it is we hope. I think probably the first issue with this idea of the need and the necessity for us to just continue to kind of harp at God with our intentions is that the idea of putting our intentions, what we want to see happen, what we need to see happen, out there to God constantly is perhaps the wrong way to pray. That maybe instead our prayers should be more along the lines of, God, help me to deal with whatever comes my way in life and give me the grace to do the most loving thing, rather than, I want to get better. God knows we want to get better. God knows we want our relationships saved and healed. So in deciding what to say about this, and in my conversation with Father Tom, his take on this gospel is so very different from what I've heard so many times. And so I thought it was interesting to just put this juxtaposition of what's commonly preached and to hear another way of looking at it. So here's Father Tom.
As I read the gospel and reflect on it, what stands out to me is what the woman was looking for. She was looking for justice. Let me say justice from this corrupt judge. And she was saying, I need a just hearing. And that is oftentimes the cry of the poor. That is oftentimes the cry of those who are marginalized, those who are struck down in racism, that they want justice. They want justice, and not justice to make them pay, but restorative justice that helps them to become, in a way, the person that they're called to be in God. So what I see in this gospel very simply is the persistence of the woman. And what Jesus is saying, continue to pray for the strength to continue to persist, especially when you call for and deal with the question of justice, and especially injustice, where you begin to say, this is not right. And two of my heroes, Martin Luther King and John Lewis, they were persistent in their prayer life as they dealt with racism in this country, when they dealt with the tremendous injustice that we have poured upon the blacks of this country. And they were persistent. So what he's saying is, listen, if you're going to seek justice or hunger and thirst for justice, like an example, if you're dealing with the whole immigration situation, if you're dealing with any situation in our society and time that calls us to look at the issue of injustice, how people are treated in the wrong way, and how oftentimes they're treated in the courts by the indifferent of those who are rendering this justice. So again, what Jesus is saying to them is, you gotta persevere in this. You gotta be able to hang in. And the prayer should be, Lord, give me the strength I need to stand in this, when the pushback at times will be very great, and that I'll be able to step up and forward, even though at times it is a struggle. It's a struggle. I remember looking at the various films of Martin Luther King and the Freedom Riders, where they sat down in a diner, and they just said, we just want to sit down, and the people came in, they beat them up. So what happens is, yes, if you seek justice, if you hunger and thirst for justice, that's one of the Beatitudes. That it's gonna cost you greatly, it's not gonna come quickly, and you're gonna have to hang in and basically say, Lord, I can't do this in my strength, I only could do this in your strength. And I'm gonna continue until, in many ways, that I wear my opponent down. And so one of the things, too, to put this together in a much tighter way, I'm going to do this, pray for God's strength, also that I can be nonviolent. I can be an agitator, but I will never attack anyone. I'll never have a need to put anyone down as I begin to say to the injustice of a particular issue, I'm here. I'm not going away, because I'm standing with God, and I'm standing with his compassion, and I'm standing with his power to be able to change the life and story of those who are being oppressed by injustice. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. So when you have to deal with something very difficult in your life, when you have to deal with the suffering that you prefer not to deal with, pray for perseverance. Pray for that sense of God's strength, so you could stand in a moment and not be destroyed by it, and not give up. Not to get God to do what you want, but to let his love come in and through you to touch into a very difficult situation. As we say, may your suffering be transformed into a movement of love. Thank you tremendously for listening.